Hello, everyone, and welcome to OOO Origami. This is our April 10th show. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah, we have Alex on the show tonight. He's never been on. Michael and Chris, you will recognize, obviously, if you've ever watched the show. Both of you that are watching right now.
Ooh, two.
Is this
Numbers
where
are
I
going
get
up.
is this where I get to say long-time listener, first-time caller?
Yes.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. I'm searching for my bottle opener so that I can, do what I'm supposed to do during the show, which is drink.
I came prepared.
Yeah,
As did I.
bedtimes. What can you do? I may just switch to liquor.
So, as I was
Liquor.
telling Mike before we started, this is from one of my infinity bottles. So I have an infinity bottle for bourbon, one for scotch, and one for just generic whiskeys. So all the American that's not bourbon, all the Irish, all the whatevers. So it happens to be the bourbon. So just gets the bottom the last swallow of whatever bottle just gets thrown in there, and you never know what you're going to get. So this is what it is.
I have one of those started for gin, which is making way more progress, and one started for whiskey. So
You throwing any whiskey in there? Probably not scotches, though. Well, you're not really a scotch guy, but
yeah, no, I tend to finish my scotches. If it's peaty, it doesn't go in there.
Yeah,
and to be perfectly honest, I'll drink the dregs from most whiskey bottles. So,
well, and that'll really mess up an infinity bottle if it's not a scotch infinity bottle. Throw some peat in there where nothing else had peat. That peat is never gonna go away.
that's correct. Anywho, so
Yeah.
what are we drinking tonight, gentlemen?
I'm drinking Heineken.
Excellent. Brian, what do you got? Oh, Alex, go ahead.
I have the Lakefront Brewery Bumble Bear.
Oh yeah.
How is that?
It's fantastic. It's a honey brown. It's got just a little bit of the sweetness of the honey, but not overpowering where you're like, it's too heavy and I can only have one.
Nice.
Good. And how about
I can
you,
tell by your
Brian?
background, you got some Wisconsin brewing. You got a beer or something or another in the back, I think. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's the guide to the appropriate glass for each of the styles of beer. And then that one is the Dogfish Head 20th anniversary sign.
Okay, gotcha. Nice.
Cool.
I'm breaking all the glassware rules.
Yeah.
Then again, I'm drinking a white stout, so
Yeah.
Those are fun.
yeah. Thanks to a mutual friend of ours, Jacob Lyons, I'm drinking the dragon's milk.
Can't
I
go
do
wrong with that.
every once in a while. Yep.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So yeah, what's new? What's fun? What's exciting? And Aurora, I love this shirt too. Here's the rest of it.
Yep. Yeah, you need the whole thing to really
Yeah.
appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah, actually, I have the same shirt. We probably got it from the same place.
We did. I shamed him into getting me one. I don't feel bad about it either. Any hoozle.
Anybody have anything exciting happen over the last week?
I had I'm telling stories out of class here. I had an outage.
Okay.
I did not cause it. Vendor caused it. So good stuff.
Mm,
But less than 2 weeks into the job and first outage.
yeah.
They
Well,
happen. They happen.
yeah, they do.
But you can still play the new guy card, so you're
I
good.
can. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
like somebody's like, oh, blame it on the new guy. I'm like, you can use that card for like 4 months, easy.
Go for
And
it.
like,
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
see, and that opens the door for you to swoop in and save the day. Like blame it on the new guy, but
right,
But then you lose your new guy card.
true.
right. No, I did the thing that the last 20 years have trained me to do, which is manage a Microsoft case, which like I can manage the heck out of a Seve Microsoft case.
Well, it is a very particular skill to have. I mean, it's
Yep.
different than dealing with most other vendors, and it's not trivial.
It's a skill that's harder to come by than you would think.
You spend more time on the phone doing Microsoft than you do trying to get a hold of anybody in the government sector.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I will say that I did not that was not me just sailing the ship alone. Like there are multiple people pulling oars together to get what ultimately was probably top 5 interactions with Microsoft I've ever had. Took a little bit to get there, but like I will say that the response once it was rolling was appropriate and really directed. So, way to go, Microsoft!
You know it.
You win some.
It's probably the deepest bucket of, there's so many things that could be wrong with a Microsoft issue too. I mean, it's not like, there's 1 or 2 or 10, I mean, you start with Microsoft and then you end up, talk about their cloud services alone. There's thousands and thousands of different components to it. It's like, it's a never ending bucket, Yeah, I can't see how anybody can even grasp it.
Well, and most of their own people don't know even a significant portion of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it can be difficult to navigate.
I blame a lot of it on the org changes. Microsoft is known for is it August or September, doing a big switch up of the org. Everybody gets new titles. Everybody reports to somebody new. So a lot of those escalation paths either get broken or lost.
Yep. Well, and they don't keep you in position. Like if you start entry, you don't stay there long if you've got any chops. Like either you're going to get a job somewhere else or they're going to promote you, which means like they're constantly sapping their technical skill from their base level.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it is a different world. Juxtaposed with like a Palo Alto support case. You may not get a great engineer first time out, but
Yeah.
The timed escalation on that is like at most an hour, which is pretty good for big vendors.
Yeah, and if you have a good relationship with your team, but like your team at Palo Alto, it's usually pretty quick. And there's things you can do to speed those along. I mean, I already know what information they're going to want. They're gonna want that support file generated and uploaded, and I'll give them everything that I've done for troubleshooting. If they ask anything stupid, no, go back, read the ticket. I'll hold. Read the ticket, and then you ask me your question.
Right.
And if I don't like you, I'm calling my my team, and I will have a new tech within the hour.
Yep, indeed. Well, enough belaboring outages.
Yep.
We've all had them. We all know vendor calls aren't the best thing in the world, and some do better than others.
Yeah.
So let's get on to our topic for the evening.
Yeah.
Brian, I think you summed it up best. What was that?
Job interview shenanigans.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and it's a little bit more than just the interview. It's kind of the whole onboarding process. But what kind of stemmed this was I had read an article about a place that interviewed a guy, and they were when the got hired, and when he showed up, they were pretty sure that's not the guy they interviewed.
I think I saw the same article.
Yeah, and apparently that's a thing.
I can attest to that. I've had that happen at organizations.
Really, that
Like,
blows my mind.
If I remember the article correctly, dude had hired somebody to be his voice on the video interview.
Yep.
And then showed up for either first day of work or in-person interview, and not the same person.
Without divulging too much information, I can attest that I've worked with organizations that, even as a consultant, they've allowed me to sit in on interviews to kind of get my professional perspective on. And the individual that shows up, one, not only does not have the skill set, entirely different person, but to find out that depending on how contracts are written with staffing agencies, whoever they're contracting with, however they're written, that person that actually shows up that you're interfacing with might be subcontracted of a subcontractor of a subcontractor of a subcontractor.
That's why they stated, yep.
Yeah. And I've actually had it where, sometimes they're really great. They're awesome, brilliant people that show up, and they end up leaving relatively quick because they're looking for a better salary, and it's like, we're paying you top dollar as far as contracting agencies go and things like that. Why? What do you mean? And that's how that got unearthed. Is there is so many different tiers.
Every step is taking their cut.
Everyone's getting a cut. So yeah, that does happen, and it gets really hairy with how contracts are written, with privacy and compliance and things like that.
So I've got to say, job interviews are kind of a foreign thing for me.
I love them.
Well, see, so I've probably only done 5 job interviews in my entire life. I've never actually gotten a job that I interviewed for.
Wow.
Every single job I've actually gotten has either been, so my very first IT job, it was a contract job. I got it because of one word that was on my resume. Well, one term that was on my resume. And without even an interview, it was, can you show up tomorrow? And that ended up liking me, and within a week of being there on contract, they wanted to hire me. And then every subsequent job, it was either somebody I knew that wanted to hire me or somebody that knew of me that wanted to hire me. It's crazy. I've never really had to interview. Well, even the previous job that I worked with, Chris, I had an interview after I had already started the job just because HR wanted me to have one. They're like, well, you need to have an interview. Like, okay, I'll stop working. I'll walk over to the other office and do an interview. It was just kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love doing interviews. I've done multiple over the years, at various points in my career. And I've also, it's one of my favorite parts of my current role is doing interviews, getting to talk to people. So love it. All parts of it.
I do too. I the challenge. I love the panel interview. My last permanent role, I've been contracting now again for about a whole year, but the job I left, I worked here for about 3.5 years. They didn't know how to interview because they were the wrong It was a bunch of systems people looking for a network person, and they were asking really silly networking questions right off the book. You know, the top 10 questions you ask, and they weren't good at it. They were very, So I brought it up. I was like, "Hey, all you guys are system guys, aren't you?" You know, and an attitude came out of the guy right away. "Oh, you got a problem with that?" I was like, no. I just, if you want to look for a network guy, you should try like do this, you know. And I asked the guy to ask a question. He got all pissy and leaned back, and he showed his ass right away. Well, I got that job. I got hired for it, but not by him. You know, the big shot was sitting in the other room, and he said, "Hire the guy. He's got an attitude, and I like him." So I was like, because I challenged them, right? And it turned out to be a bad place to be. I stuck around for longer than I really needed to, but it was not a good match for me. I did a lot of nice stuff, but you know, it was the people that were the problems. I met some good friends, but I had no intention, you know, and they finally crossed the line. It's like, I just got to get out of here, and I left. You know?
I mean,
yeah, well, they didn't appreciate a very experienced person that's willing to tell the truth.
Yeah.
Instead of blowing smoke up their butts.
Yep.
I've never had an organization really appreciate what I'm bringing to the table until at least a couple of weeks into my job, right? Like most of my I'm okay technically. I'm not gonna ruin your environment, right? But I'm not a genius as far as that stuff comes. But I bring other skills to the table that make employers generally appreciate having hired me. But I've had all kinds of interviews. I've had interviews where they very clearly thought that I was overqualified and decided not to reach out to me. I've had interviews where my boss later told me I was way too honest in the interview. Which I think is an interesting statement after having gotten hired, right? Like, yeah. I've had interviews where people brought me in just to prove a point. And I've had interviews where management level people thought I was a great candidate, but like when they get into the peer, team dynamic portion of the interview, just completely derail the interview process, probably to the company's detriment. Because I'm not a horrible, hard person to work with. So, I think at least two people on this call can attest to that.
Yeah.
But I've also had interviews that were great. So
I like the interview process. You never come unprepared. I always dig deep into the job description that they're trying to look for somebody, and there's always like 3 people's worth of detail in there. You come prepared for it, but when you're right smack in the interview and we get going and they ask you to talk a little bit about yourself, that's the setup. That's the piece right there where you give them the bait, where you want to talk about the things that you're better at. So you set it up. You want to talk about things like, layer 2. No. You want to talk about spanning tree, and you say the word spanning tree, and all of a sudden you can hear the guy scribbling down, here comes your next question, right? And you can take them down that path and avoid the stuff that you don't want somebody to ask, that Google question that you don't have the answer. No one has the answer to. So I love doing that.
Take control of it. And you drive the conversation.
Yeah.
So
pretty much.
This is very interesting and beneficial for me to hear you guys' perspectives and experience, because when I do interviews now, having had a lot of experience and having gone through all of your experiences, going out and interviewing for jobs myself, to Michael's point, that's the first question, and that's how I tee up all my interviews is, hey, spend the first 5 minutes talking about yourself. Tell me some of the cool projects you've been working on recently. You know, things that might not be on your resume that you feel are important to share. We have a cat joining us.
Yeah, that's absolutely.
Um,
Hey,
so
we've had children join us before, Alex.
Yeah.
It's fine.
there you go. So yeah, it really opens up the door for you to very briefly be like, I got chops, and I'm not afraid to share that with you, and I'm more than just a paper shark with a
Yeah.
great resume. Because then I can probably skip most of my technical questions, and then it's more of really feeling you out if it's a cultural fit.
Yep.
I'm a huge fan of the 5 dysfunctions of a team, and I think anybody that has interview experience or is working on team building or things like that, read that book. It really talks about how teams jive, and when they don't jive, how one toxic member could be that
Yep.
thing that's really tanking the team. So personally, I would take somebody that is either less educated, is maybe not maybe doesn't have as many certifications or years in the field or things like that, but is culturally a fit and is going to jive with my team, and is open to learning, because they're going to catch up to speed. They're probably going to get much further ahead quicker than somebody that's not.
Yeah, somebody that fits in the team and is willing to learn and has the capacity to learn, they're more valuable than somebody that has a cert that says they can do it, but
right.
is going to butt heads with people
Right.
or doesn't actually know. Just give me somebody trainable that fits in the team.
Right.
Will make them useful.
Validate their ability to either learn or like a basic level of technical capability, and then team fit all day, every day. Because you know what? Doesn't, even if you've got all the technical chops, the best you're going to get out of somebody is they're actually going to be independently productive about a month later. That's the best you can hope for, right? Like, yeah, you can walk them through some stuff. If they've got their technical chops, you can get them working on stuff within a week or two. But like the ability to be largely self-directed, and let's be honest, that's what we want.
Yep.
That ability, the earliest you're going to have somebody doing self-directed work, and probably the earliest you should let them be doing self-directed work is a month in. They've got to learn stuff, unless you've done a ton of work up front to like genericize the environment so that like you can be like, hey, here's the same work you've gotten from the last 6 companies you've consulted for, or whatever it is, right? Like for the most part, there's always ramp up time, but that team fit, you can't replace that. Like if they're a jerk, if they're like a lazy MF, like you can't fix that.
Yeah, there's not a lot you can do about lazy or don't show up.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, we've had I've worked with people that they're fantastic. I mean, they're the jerks, and at the end of the day, we have customers come back and complain, and it's like, well, they're not wrong. We just don't like dealing with them. we would rather have somebody that took longer, that was more reasonable to deal with, or we'd just rather have anybody else but this individual because they're tough to deal with. And as a manager, it's like, well, you can't really argue. You can't argue with that. Like, this person's right. They can do what they need to do, but they don't. It's the soft stuff that really matters.
Yeah, and you can hire people that have soft skills and can work with difficult people, but like that's added cost, right? Like, do you want to devote any level of resources for somebody who's got soft skills to like being the filter for somebody that's technically proficient but soft skill useless? Maybe. I guess if they're amazing, sure, right? Like if you're like productive like 5 or 6 other people, then yeah, you can devote another person to like, you know, be their anger translator or whatever it is, right?
It also depends on the job that you're working through too. I mean, most of the work at home positions are remote. what they're looking for is some that is totally independent. You can take the task with us. You're a call taker. You can troubleshoot. You really don't have to deal with people until the call comes in, right? Or someone escalates to you. I was in a call the other night. We were doing migrations. We do them at night, and we have the site people. They're not technically capable in most cases, but you walk them through. And I had this lady just go nuts on me. I asked her to do something. She refused to do it. She wasn't going to do it. All I had to do is, hey, you just gotta follow the cable, see where it goes to, and tell me what it's plugged into.
Cable, please.
Listen here, you. And she railed on me. I let her go. Like I usually, you want to talk, I'll talk with you. I'll run you. I don't care. I don't have the patience for it, but I let her go. And I didn't say a word to her. And then when she was all done, I asked her, "You want to start over?" Real nicely. And she thought I was a wise guy. Hey, I got to get this thing cut over tonight, lady. You're all I got. So somehow I got to get you remotivated to step up, right? If you got a couple more things you want to say to me, knock yourself out. But let's get going here, And then the next day I told my boss about it. He says, "Well, you tell her where to stick it." "Oh no, I'll call her back tonight and roll her."
You know what? That's what I appreciate about you, Mike.
Yeah.
No holds barred.
Yeah.
So at one point in my career, I worked for a company that worked heavily with home health care nurses. And I was on the on-call rotation every other week. And the number of times I was talking to a home health care nurse that was convinced that they didn't like me, the company I worked for, or the product that we were selling, and had to get them to do the job they were sent out to do and appreciate it, was shocking. When you're taking a call at 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning after you've had a few to drink the night before, it's rough. But, it's the job. You suck it up. And you make them convince you're on their side. And that's what I find in those things. Like, it's rapport, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Also, too, even with the interviews, right now it's all Zoom or WebEx, right? So you kind of get your best face on, brush your teeth, comb your hair a little bit. I'm not wearing a shirt and tie like I show up in the office. Matter of fact, my last that I went in person, I showed up in the polo shirt, nice pair of slacks, good shoes. There was no first impression. The first impression comes from the resume. You called me, and we went through the initial interview, right? And we got through it. Now you want to talk deeper. Same with the Teams meeting. That's what I sit back, just like I'm dressed now. Go, right? You want to see my face to make sure the guy that you're talking to is the right person. We're beyond that. Now we're going to get nuts and bolts and start doing the interview. So,
So I've got this question. How much can you really get from a resume?
Mine, you take a look at it, it's there, because the things about the resume is there's always an initial statement on the top. This is who I am. It's a generic thing, right? They've changed so many things over the last couple of years. Oh, too many pages, too much. We ain't reading it. They want more. If you say you have 20 years experience, you better show 20 years worth of things that you've done. And the manner that you represented it isn't just that you did it. What was your role? What was your success? Okay, so then in your cover letter, it's absolutely important. I've done a lot of apply for jobs just generically and got calls, but it's the cover letter that lets them know, hey, I can't wait to talk to you about how I fit your description and what I can do for you. All right, there's the curiosity hook, right? They want to know.
So here's my thing. Like, I know all those things are supposed to be true, but if I put myself in the shoes of a hiring manager, and Alex, maybe you can speak to this, but if I put myself into the shoes of the hiring manager, I imagine that I'm seeing 20, 30 letters that are all enthusiastic about talking to me about how I can be an asset to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how much sunshine do I want blown up my keister?
Yeah.
Right. Like,
how you say it, though.
No, it
Yep.
doesn't. For me,
It does
it doesn't.
For me, every time I've
Because
applied for a
Every time
position,
I
get
read a
call.
letter like that, I'm like, great. You know how to use the English language and you found a great template online. Right? I don't you I'm actually pretty hard to blow sunshine up my butt. Right? Because like I don't buy any of it.
So
What I
what is
wanna
it
know-
that made someone call you for an initial interview to see if you were worth a shit?
Technical items on your resume that they were hoping that you would bear out in an interview. That's it.
So I have a lot of opinions here, and I'm not to
Good.
say that my
Please.
opinions are right or wrong.
Why you're here?
It's tough in today's world because I think like our process that goes through now, most of the candidates are through some form of a contracting agency, a headhunter, or something like that, and they get filtered, and we can tell that a lot of those items, they get coached on how to tailor that resume. They might be like, add in this keyword, add in that keyword.
Right.
I do a lot of hiring for architects. So they'll put in the designing, the architecture keywords, and then I get into the interview and I say, so can you tell me about an environment that you've designed? Tell me about a network that you've, architected, or, something like that. And then it's like, well, I haven't really done that. Boom, huge red flag. I'm pulling out right there.
Yeah, I gotta go.
Cover letters.
Well, thank you for your time.
As the hiring manager, I don't see a lot of cover letters. I have not seen, in multiple companies, I have not seen a lot of cover letters. They usually get filtered out at the HR level.
Yep.
It's very weird. Your resume and your cover letter, in my opinion, it needs to do two functions. You need to get through that HR person. There's typically an HR person that's non-technical, that's checking boxes. Like, what are the absolute critical things that this person or this role needs? Do you have those things? Everything else is nice to have. Like, I'll let the me figure that out.
Top 10 questions they're going to ask you.
Yeah.
General.
When it comes to resumes, when HR sends me 20 resumes and says, I need you to go through these and figure out which ones you want to interview, I'm looking for something that's relevant, right? Like, if I'm looking, I'll use architecture again. If I'm looking for somebody that can architect, like talk about architectural frameworks and design stuff, if I see that you've been working at a help desk for the last 20 years, like, that's great, but I'm not sure that you're going to be the person that I want to design a global network. Just not there. Or if you've been doing project management work, I can't believe how many project managers come through to get into an architecture role, and I'm like, how did you even apply for this? Because we don't need somebody to push a project along, right? Like, good project managers are worth their weight in gold. I am wholeheartedly behind that. But there's a lot of them that they don't understand their function. They just want to check the check boxes and be the task manager, and that's not, in my opinion, where the project manager role lies.
Well, and it's not where an architect belongs either, right? Like,
Right.
let the project managers manage the project. Let the architects architect.
Absolutely. So then, okay, so say I narrowed it down. I got 5 people that have some kind of a design experience sometime. And like, I'm not talking about specific architecture stuff. If you're a senior engineer someplace and you're like, yeah, I was a consultant and I got brought into these environments and I would redesign the stuff to make it more efficient, blah, blah, blah. I want to talk to you because I want to know how you were leveraging your different skills and talents in your black bag to redesign those things. Because if I can reapply those, like, you might be my guy or gal. So those are the things that I'm now looking at. I'm reading the actual description behind your title, because if you didn't have the descriptions behind those titles, or if your titles weren't relevant, or I didn't think that they were even close, I'm probably not even reading the description. So,
or if the work you were doing wasn't in line with the title you had, because some places are overly generous with titles.
Yes.
And you'll have something that's way out of your depth, Like,
Yep.
oh, you were an architect, but it was at a 30-person shop or a 30-person company. No, you weren't an architect. You weren't architecting shit.
Right.
You were deploying a dozen PCs. That's not. It's a completely different ballpark.
Mhm.
Or they'll
You're
have a
not
director title,
right.
and they're the only person in IT. So of course they're a director. That totally makes sense. No,
And
you weren't a
monitor.
director. I don't
Yep.
care what your title was.
Yeah, and a lot of those, like, I'll get them into the interview and I'll find out there. Like, if I end up wasting a half hour on somebody to find out that they've only done small, medium-sized business,
Right.
I might throw them a bone for a different role, or depending on what role I'm hiring. But most of it, it's is there even a remote alignment? Um, like I said, project managers, your entry-level analysts, things like that, probably not making it through. Sorry.
And that like that's tough calculus, right? Like I've known people that um not on the ops or like infrastructure side, but I've known people in like the development side that were totally ready to make the jump to like development architect, but companies don't want to take a chance on it. And I understand why they don't want to. Like that's a lot of salary and a lot of mess if you get the wrong person in position. Like you can make a
It's
horrible mess.
Yeah, and a lot of it can be political. If it's like say it's an internal position, and there's a lot of political drama where my team's not providing um, to one of our customers, like I probably don't want to take a chance on somebody that might drop the ball even further. I probably want to get somebody that's going to knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
But if I have a good relationship with that business unit, I may be more willing to take a chance on somebody if they're a good cultural fit and I feel like they're going to be able to provide good customer service and maybe not be the quickest right away, but is going to be able to get it done right and just take a little bit longer.
There we go.
I mean, that addresses an interesting question about why are you hiring, right? Are you hiring to maintain healthy staffing levels or to like ensure that you're going to maintain healthy staffing levels? Or are you hiring because you desperately need a person because you've been understaffed for 2, 3, 4 years, right? Because the expectation in the world of like if you've got the time to groom a good candidate that is underqualified on paper or like perhaps underqualified in person but has good potential, like that's where you want your department. In my estimation, you want your department to be that level, to be able to make good investments that might take a little bit of time to pan out but are ultimately going to be a huge asset, right? But if you're looking for the next warm body so you can hopefully maybe like sleep 3 weeks from now, that's not good.
Yeah.
There's every one of those scenarios in so many different businesses.
Right?
I feel like consulting is a little bit more. They'd rather choose somebody up and spit them out because they're going to make their buck off of them while they're there, and if they don't pan out, then we'll just get rid of them. And consulting organizations, in my opinion, they're very much one to say, oh, we like having one or two engineers, architects, whatever on the bench, right? So they can do training, you can do lab work, things like that. I have not seen one that has held true. Anybody can feel free to chip in and correct me, but that's just not true because there's somebody up on top that's why aren't they at their 90% billables? Why, it all comes down to the billables.
Right.
They are the product, right?
Yep.
And if you're not billing for that product, you're losing money.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. And I've recently transitioned, so I spent a long time doing consulting. I'm now in large enterprise organizations, and we actually have it as part of your annual review is how many hours did you spend? Like you have a minimum hours of time that you're supposed to spend doing your continuing education, things like that. I have guys that, you know, we get into Q3, Q4, and they're like, I just don't think I'm going to be able to do it. And it's like, no, let's pick a week, a month from now, 2 months now, 3 months now. We'll block off your calendar now, because then we can start planning around it. But we need you to continue to do this, continue to brush up, take that time. And we want to invest in you. We want to invest in our resources.
It's actually, so 2 weeks into a new job, it's one of the refreshing things. My boss, my team is invested in that. Like, it's in my formal objectives. Invest in yourself, in a substantive way, like to the point where the metric is based on a weekly measurement. So, like, take the time, do it. And I've seen him interact with a couple of people on it, and no, absolutely, he genuinely, the company has bought into the idea of, like, improve yourself. And, like, from a company standpoint, it's way more sensical to invest in the staff you already have improving themselves than, like, letting them ossify and become less relevant and then having to find a new person. Like, that month to 6 months ramp up time is really expensive. Particularly, like, if like even a quarter of them wash out, like, what's that cost look like?
A lot.
If you come in for a specific job, right? I stick pretty much with the same things. I don't bounce around a lot. I'm not a systems guy. Never want to be one. Pretty much stay with the networking, the firewall, security, and stuff like that. You come into a place, usually you have to land running, and I search out certain roles. I just don't come in and want to be your help desk or your next level 2 support guy. I come in specifically because I have a skill that you look for and you brought me in for. During that time frame, I work on key components, how you fit in, and the things that they like about the approach is that if you're working out and you're learning the things that they need to, and you're helping the people, you're not just, a mentor to them, but they're actually learning from you. You might be the person that want to keep, because now taking, contract to hire type roles, not just the contract role, but contract to hire. You're a keeper. If you're a keeper, that's a success story. That's not, you fit in, you are part of what they need. You are actually a benefit. You did just what they needed. It's easier to find a person in that respect, because you don't have to worry about, okay, how am I going to take Joe or whatever and make him, get to the next level that he needs to be? How do I get him to train in these areas? What is the course he has to have? What if he doesn't want to be a senior level engineer? What if he doesn't want to migrate, away from the day-to-day operations that he enjoys doing? He just likes being a wart and just progressing slowly. So he gets a bad review, or he's a 2, not a 3 or a 4, right? It happens. People don't want to work any harder. They eat peanut butter and jelly every day for a reason.
So your story there reminded me of something, and before I have to jet here, just something I want to make a point of for you guys and anybody listening is ask questions if you go in for an interview. If you don't have questions lined up,
absolutely,
it's doing yourself and potentially doing them a disservice. If you start getting kind of like, I'm not sure that this is the role that I really want to be looking for, start asking more specifics. Make the statements, I'm really looking for a role where I can leverage my Exchange skills, where I can leverage my AWS talents. This is what I'm looking for in my next role. There's nothing wrong with you saying that.
right.
And, like, I'm not saying you have to be rigid about every single thing, because not every job is exactly tailored to you, but it doesn't mean that there's not going to be enough right about it that over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, that you can't work with those individuals to get it to be tailored to you. So going back to one of Michael's earlier stories about how you get in and get into the interview and this guy's a jag or he starts scoffing and things like that. Interviews are red flags. Start asking, are you going to be are you the individual that I'm going to be reporting to? Because if right now, if I don't have a good vibe with you, I'm not going to have a good vibe with you in a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever down the road, and I'm just going to be miserable. So if you're just taking the job for money,
whether the company's interviewing you,
right?
Absolutely.
Don't be afraid to get up and leave. I mean, I've done that as well too. If you can tell right away that you're in a bad place, there's no reason to carry on. I mean, I don't even care if you don't like me when I start standing up to put my coat on. I've already decided I'm not working here. I don't like you. I'm leaving.
Yep.
I've walked out of them. It's you feel better. You're standing out in the parking lot and you feel better already. That you didn't do a dumb thing.
I had a woman, and I absolutely respect her to all get out. And she came in. She was, I would refer to her as a unicorn in the sense that like she had all the skills, everything. Like she was the ideal candidate, better than we could write down on paper. Went through all the interviews. We went through all the salary negotiations, the package, the whole 9 yards. And at the end of it, she was like, you know what? I just feel like I really want to take the next step into a leadership position, and I don't think that this is going to do that for me. And it really stunk for us, but I really had the respect for her to say that, because it was better for her to do that than for us to bring her on, get her trained up in 6 months, a year, while she's looking for that leadership position, and then she's out, and then we're right back to where we began.
Right.
So, be honest with your interviewers. Maybe not be Chris honest, but be honest.
No, I mean, my latest thing in first of all, I'm done interviewing, right? Like, I'm not going to send you my resume, go through the stupid HR stuff. I want to have a conversation. I want to have a conversation with people, and if that conversation leads to another one, and after that, or whatever, we need to get HR involved, great. And if we don't, then we've had a nice conversation.
Not in the way that HR normally needs to get involved when Chris is around. But like in a good way.
Right. Like, I mean, I'm having to testify all the time about what I saw or didn't see. I've just got bad luck. No. But
yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah, let's sit down. Let's go get lunch. This is interesting. Let's sit down. Let's have lunch.
Right. But
whatever. We'll talk. And if it turns into something.
Right. The thing that I've used in all the conversations I've had, in the last, call it a year, are you talk about your skills, their needs, and the question I always ask is, what are your top 3 pain points? Like, you, potential employer, what are your top 3 pain points? They can always at least come up with one. If they've got their stuff together, 2, 3, maybe 4, right? And then I talk about it like, here's how I can address those issues for you. And at that point, either I answered a question you didn't ask in a way that sounded good to you, or didn't. And I'm not offended whichever way that goes. You addressed a condition, like, beyond the idea of like, oh, we've got a job description out there, we're looking to hire somebody for this, like, whatever weird conglomeration that you, after 3 months of mulling over a position, plus HR, plus other people, like, oh, they should also be able to grow an extra unicorn horn, like, well, we'd really like them to have a doctorate in 3 different subjects. Like, who knows, right?
Yeah.
What I want to know is, why are you hiring for this position? Is it that you're overworked? Is it that you're just having a hard time meeting specific needs? Like, are you bad at automation as a company? Do you really need somebody that knows, like, deep down knows Palo Alto or F5, or like, hey, I'm an idiot savant at switching. Like, is that what you need? Tell me those things and let me tell you how I can do that. And if I can't do those things, let me be honest about it and say, yeah, that's not my wheelhouse. I'm willing to learn. If that's good for you, hire me. And if it's not, great. We've had a lovely lunch.
See, I would ask that question and have them give their 1, 2, or maybe even 3 items. Then I would ask the follow-up question, what would your senior engineers and architects, how would they answer that question?
Fair enough.
Just to make them think. And if they don't have a good answer for that,
Yep.
ask them and get back to me.
Right. I keep a checklist just like you guys do when you're interviewing me. I also have things I like to ask, and I try to get that out of you. Even if you didn't answer it right, I'll ask it again in a different format. I'll ask a different person in the interview the same question until I get what I'm looking for, because that's basically what it is. The interview it's a two-way street. I might not want to work there. I apply for the position, and you called me, right? So now let's find out. Right. And some people, I love it when they call right away. You answer and you fill out the form and you give them all the stuff and all this. And even though they're doing it through a job board, I'll always give them my phone number. Here it is, reach out if you have a question. And sometimes the phone rings like within a half an hour. It's like, I'm ready. You want to do it right now? Go get your team. Let's go. Right. I'm always ready for that. Right. That's why you applied for the job. Otherwise, what are you doing it for?
You never know.
Fit.
It could be,
Right.
hey, do you really know how to fix that thing that we talked about in the interview?
Yeah,
'Cause we have a problem.
exactly. Been there.
Oh,
done it.
Because you had one of those.
I got a job that way. But
Yeah.
Alex, I know you're gonna have to go soon. Before we let you go, I want to ask a really quick question.
Fire away.
All of us on the call, real quick. Worst interview question you've ever had when you were interviewing for a job? I'm going to take the easy one. What's your biggest failure? or no, I'll leave it there. I'll say biggest failure. I love being asked in like a interview for a technical position.
Yeah.
Tell us about your biggest failure.
Or your biggest weakness.
My favorite one is
Although biggest weakness is a slightly that is a more useful question. But what's your biggest failure? It's a lazy question.
how do you handle
Right.
difficult people?
So is biggest weakness.
Right?
Difficult people. That's an interesting question.
How are you fishing? What are you fishing for when you ask a person how you deal with people? Well, as a nice guy, hey, I got the best rapport you can ever ask for. I'm always on my best behavior, right?
Well, Michael, you could always just say, hey, well, I'm the most difficult person that I've ever had to encounter.
Exactly.
So Mike, you can just say, I wake up every morning and I deal with myself. So I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So, wow, that makes me think a lot about some of the questions that I ask, because I ask those questions, but in a slightly different format. And I wonder, so I've been on paternity leave for 2 months, so forgive me. I'm trying to recall the exact question that I would.
Sleep is at a premium. Forgive him.
Yeah. No. What are some of the techniques or strategies that you use to overcome stakeholders that are adverse to an effort that you're working on, or something along those lines?
That's a good question.
That's a good question. That's not
Bad
the same
question.
as
How do you deal with difficult people? Like, what are you asking there, right? Like, either it's just like, well, I read a book about good interview practices, and this was a question on there, right? Like, in an interview, and I'll say this to any hiring manager, in an interview, ask questions that you want answers to. Yep. And they should not be open-ended. They should be directed questions. Yep. If you've got a problem, ask them how they'd solve it. And if you don't like how they answer it, fine, but like recognize whether or not they are able to formulate a decent answer, and then figure out if they can bend themselves to your will, right? Like, Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but don't ask me like, hey, what do you think of the color purple? Like, that's basically the same question as like, how do you deal with difficult people? Well, I try to treat them nice. Like,
Right.
Yeah, I've tried to reconstruct some of those questions. I still ask, what is your greatest weakness? And the purpose behind, or my purpose behind why I ask that, is not necessarily I'm looking for you to pour your heart out, or have a confession or anything else like that. Is there something that you're cognizant of that you're working on? Is there, if you're like, oh, like I really really hate dealing with printers, but I don't know, like I'm reading books on how drivers are written to better understand it. I don't know. Like have something to kind of lean and show that there's a little bit of humility. Not that you're like, I'm a rock star, I got no flaws.
this is the
You know,
point where I'm going to prove that I'm too honest. If you ask me what my greatest weakness is now in my career, what I'm going to respond with is arrival time. Schedule a fake
And
meeting
that's
with me
fair.
every morning at 9. If you want me to be there at 9:30, schedule a fake meeting with me at 9.
And that's
And be
entirely fair.
angry with me when I'm not there. Like, pretend to be like, I will be there till fucking midnight and I'll work it out. I won't bat an eye, right? But like, man, that first point in the morning, unless it's like after 9:30, don't
And
ask me.
that might be my follow-up question, is like, oh, like what are your normal starting times? And now
Right.
I am very privileged, where I'm at right now, where I'm in a global organization where I can be like, oh, you'd rather work from 5 a.m. to 3 p.m. Like, great, we have team members that are online that you can overlap with and you can get your work done. You'd rather work from noon to 8 p.m. We got people online. Like when it's, I think back to those traditional consulting positions that are, your small, medium-sized businesses, you're locally run. Like, if you're not available at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, you're the product. You're not selling, and that's money you could have won. They're not looking at the backside of it, because let's face it, even if you're there at 8 o'clock, you're probably going to be working to 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock anyways, right?
Right.
They're cashing in on that, regardless of if you're there at 8 or not. So
Yeah.
they
They tell
want
you
to.
it's an 8 to 5 job, but what they really mean, because they're working with a lot of manufacturing, is like they want you from like 5:30, 6 a.m. until, 9 p.m.
Let's face it, you're on the call around the clock, 7 days a week, 365. Let's face
Indeed.
it,
Yeah.
Indeed.
Now that I'm getting paid hourly, I don't mind.
right?
I mean,
Do you get
I
OT?
usually start. Yeah, no, not as such.
Right.
But
You know when I don't mind working hourly? When I'm working proper OT pay. Like, if it's more than 8
yes,
hours, I get time and a half. If it's weekend, I get double time. And if it's holiday, it's triple. Then I do not mind working, more. I don't mind working the extra hours, right?
yeah, me because of
I'm a
how my pay
salaried.
works, it's almost backwards. So I actually
Right.
make less per hour past 40. But especially now that I'm just swamped with a couple of customers that have a lot of work to get done. So I've been working 55, 60, sometimes a little bit more.
Right.
Whatever.
And I'm not saying, like, seriously though, like, it's the modern IT world. I'm not looking to work 40 hours a week. If I'm sub 50, fine.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah, that's where it is.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's the expectation. I mean,
A
I'm
lot
going to
better
check
than working
email.
80 and only getting paid for 40. And that was the norm. So
Yep.
done with all that garbage.
I know,
Anyway,
Chris, that you said that was your final question. I really didn't answer that, and I'm having a hard time because.
you think about it. We'll have you back on.
Yeah, we'll have you back on.
All right, I'll stew on that one for a while.
Maybe,
Yeah, you're
maybe we'll
welcome anytime.
maybe we'll finally deliver on that shorter section. Like, we'll do like a tight 10 on like how to, like, here's the best way to interview.
Oh, the question just came in. Sorry, Chris, I zoned out while I was reading it. When was the
It's all
last time
good.
someone had a vacation planned and it was revoked? I've
Yeah.
If they
never.
wince.
Yeah, you can't
Like,
go.
ooh,
I've
yesterday.
I have never said no to vacation. I've never said no to PTO. I personally have a 3-question. Chris, if you came to me and said I need time off, I kind of zone out when you say. Shouldn't say I zone out. I do pay attention because if there's a family loss or something like that, I want to be, or if you have a medical issue, I want to support you, or make you available whatever resources there are. But it's usually, do your stakeholders know that you're going to be gone? If not, do you have time to provide me with a list of them so I can notify them? Are there any deliverables that you're going to be expecting to miss? And are there any meetings that you'd like us to arrange for coverage? We can have somebody go to that meeting. I'll go to the meeting and record it for you if that's what's
Yeah.
necessary. So I
That's
had
right.
vacation planned and it was revoked. So no, never.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you've
Yeah.
got vacation planned, like
Everybody knows. Yes.
if you're popping a PTO on a manager like with 2 days notice, yeah, those are appropriate questions. If you're dropping PTO like 2-3 months in advance, yeah, you want to make sure everything's covered ahead of time and ask those questions. But man, they'd better be settled. Or at that point, like,
if it's that far in advance, usually what I do 2 days before you're scheduled to be out, I'll schedule a one-on-one with you, 30 minutes to an hour. I ask those questions, and that's why I take deep
Mhm.
notes. What have you been working on? Just let's use this as our normal sync up, because I'm gonna have people provide coverage if you're out for an extended amount of time. And then your first day back, all those people that were covering for you,
Get you
we're gonna
spinning back
do
up.
we're gonna sync back up and get you up to speed, and off you go.
Yeah, it's basic continuity of your role, basically. Because there's people that depend on you, and you depend on other people. Just because you're taking vacation doesn't mean everybody else is.
Yep.
But
Things come up. Family, me and my other managers, we're family first, 110%. I don't care if your dog's sick. They're part of your family. You go do that. We're in IT. Nobody's gonna nobody's gonna die. And if you're in a role where somebody's gonna die because you're not at your desk, there better be continuity plans, because that's a really bad practice if one person's gone.
and if there's not, that's on the business, not on you.
Right, nobody's
Yeah.
leaving their desk, walking out the front door, and taking on fire, things like that. Like we will survive. They're like, you go do your family things, take care of them, and then the work will be here always when you get back.
ain't that the truth? The work is always there.
Awesome.
It is. Organizations typically will take everything that you're willing to give. So it's up to you to meet the requirements, but also make sure that you're meeting the requirements of your family in your day-to-day life. So
Yeah, so W2K, that's the answer you're supposed to get, like the non-red flag answer.
And
So,
and if you're not, like, you know what? Maybe give a hard look at going to work for Panera or Taco Bell. They're always hiring. They're going to give you the same answer, but when you walk out, you're not going to feel as bad. Just saying. Like, they should treat you well.
all right, Alex, I know you got to get going. So
Yeah.
Thanks
you
for
very
coming,
much
man.
for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for
Very
having me. It
appreciate it.
was a blast. I love interviewing. I love administrating interviews. So it's a great topic. Great time, guys. Thanks.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Have a good one.
Cheers.
Actually, I didn't want to say it out loud, but the way you deal with a difficult person is, especially if you're not in a position of management and it's a daily thing. Like we've all had to deal with other, JAGs in the places we came from. But
not since you quit.
No, right. I was, I interviewed to try to get back in a company one time. They wanted me to come back, but they wanted to go through the process. I was gone. I worked there for 13 years. They laid
You
us
want
all
me
off.
to come back and you want me to re-interview?
Exactly. And so one of the questions was, how do I deal with a difficult person? I said, well, let's see. I think the manager was in the phone answering the question. I said, and I had this guy who couldn't talk in house English. He was really bad. He was getting frustrated. I tried to work with him right there in the interview. Hey, I asked him to repeat himself once, and he couldn't do it. And I told him, well, why don't you try chatting the information or have one of the other people interpret for you? And he got even more mad. So the boss was on the line. I said, you know what? Here's how I deal with a difficult person. As long as you're on the phone right now and you're paying attention to what's going on, I'll turn it over to you and let you deal with this guy. Because I don't need to deal with him because he's getting all pissy with me for asking a question. You deal with him.
Mm-hmm.
And then she just sat there and we got real quiet and silent. And that was one of the jobs that I wanted to go back to help the team that was there before because they were struggling. But after knowing that she was in charge now, I didn't want to get near the lady. I would have had her by her neck. There's just no way I would have went back.
So what I'm hearing, Mike, is your way of dealing with difficult people, grab them by the neck.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely. If I got the opportunity, you don't want to sit on a bar stool next to me. Don't let me walk up behind you and you're in the bathroom taking a leak. It's right to the back of the head. Pass it on to the boss. Let the boss deal with a person that, can't be human. It's not your role. You try to do all you can and be professional and do all the stuff already. And you got, a guy just being a jerk because he's got nothing else to do. I mean, we came from that place. We had multiple people that always just flexed their muscles because they were your boss and threatened to fire you even in a hostile work environment. Those people have to be dealt with in a different manner.
Well, and there's different types of difficult people. Some you need to placate. Some you need to meet with equal hostility.
Right.
It's the only thing they'll respect.
There's the aggressive people, right? That's its own form of nasty. There's the passive aggressive, right? There's the aggressively passive, and there's the fully passive. That like all of those things are ways to be obnoxious to another person. Like if you're and I'm going to take the passive one because people are thinking like, well, how can you be like nasty by being passive? Like, hey, can you help me out with this? Absolutely. And like, they're not even like, it's not absolutely, when I get around to it in their head. No, they do it at the rate that they can, right? Like there's ways to do it just super like, you could call it passive aggressive, but like, no, they're like, oh, whatever, boss. I don't know what there's the folks who are like, yeah, I can help you out with that. They have no idea what they're doing, but they told you they can. So they do a thing. And then you come back and like, this was wrong. Like, oh, I can do better. And like you will burn so much time with them. And what they could have just said is, I don't know how to do this. Right. Like at the end of the day,
which would have been the correct answer from the beginning.
Right. Find the middle point. Stand up for yourself. Report what you know how to do accurately. Don't just be a dirt road that everybody grinds their tires on. And at the same time, don't like get in people's face. Like, you're awful. Why would you ever ask me that? Like all those things around the outside, don't be there. Go for the center.
Yeah, we always tried, at least when we had bricks in the room, you try to deviate away a little bit and try to put a lighter conversation in the room, joke a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, wait till the person leaves the room, and you got left, that dumb brick, or, you talk about them when they're gone. No benefit there. It just doesn't work because that becomes the norm then, right? I mean, remember what we drove that guy, You know, we all knew who he was, and we all knew his abilities, and yet it became a standard for us for a long time. Instead of just confronting him straight up, right, and just letting them know, look, there are things you do good, you should stick with them, and not try to do something you can't.
Right. I mean, I'm sad that Alex had to leave because he and I both worked with a guy that was like Mr. like, oh yeah, I'll do it. I try better. And like, he just not an asset. We just would have wished that he'd said, yeah, I don't know how to do that. I can't do that, because what it would have ended up doing is either there would have been a lot more effort to develop him, or he would have been let go.
Yeah.
And both things would have been better for the company and him.
Yeah.
You know, letting people coast along, because you feel sorry for them, and like you don't want to like lose my job. Like, I don't want to take jobs from people. Like, I want them to be gainfully employed, but at some point, like, find the right career path. And if this isn't the right for you, particularly in IT ops, like, move on. Because
and allowing that to stand is poisoning the rest of the team.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. I used to like disturbing the flow, though. You know, there'd be some times where, you know, it wasn't, you know, again, I talk about the place we just came from because it was the easiest one to remember, the condescending behavior and just a hostile environment. And, you know, there's just one person said, if he said you were no good, you're no good. And he just went with the fact that that's what he said. You know, he said, so you can't be, right? So I would challenge that in a manner in which, right, I'd rather you try to fire me for bumping heads with you for something that wasn't true, right? I'd call him out. I thought you were smarter than that. Oh, I am smarter than that, right? And I'd go right with him, and I'd make him talk about it to a point where he would frustrate himself. And it wasn't me that was tweaking him. It was just him not being able to deal with that, like you were saying before. You know, I was just not antagonizing him. I was just agreeing with him to a point where he didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
You call him out. It's like, but in a nice manner. I did this in another job as well.
Oh yeah, some of those you just kind of set up their inconsistencies and kind of force them to work through them out loud.
Yeah.
I mean,
and then see them flail around because it's not consistent.
Yep.
Sometimes that works.
Yeah,
I mean,
sometimes somebody needs a
absolutely
certain level of self-awareness to actually for that to work.
Right.
Some people are so dense that doesn't work.
There's density or, you know, various particular personality quirks. Like, you can totally have like an inability to recognize a particular failing. I'm sure I have them. I think everybody does. Like, there are specific things that you just cannot recognize in yourself. Like, I think I'm a charming dude. That's actually not true.
I was told that I was prickly, and I can't imagine why.
I think it's the fact that you dress as a hedgehog or a porcupine. Like, there are literal spines on you around Halloween. I think that's it. That's got to be it, right?
No.
All right.
Yeah. So back to the interview process, right?
Right. So let me give you the glad-handed topic for discussion. Best interview question you've ever had.
The guy asked me flat out now, okay, so you're through all the technical stuff and all of that, and then we talk a little bit about the environment and all stuff like that. So if we were to hire you right now, what's the first thing you want to do? You know, so now you get to tell them right there and then, you know, well, you looked at my credentials, you told me what you're looking for, I kind of told you what I can do. Now I'm going to tell you how I can fit in, right? And if you've gathered all the information, you should be able to flat out tell them, you know, not that you're his next genius, you don't want to put, you know, your ass on there, but pretty much is, you know, I like
Yeah.
to teach. I like to get people to learn, not just your way, but you've been doing it like this a certain way. It may be right or wrong, doesn't matter. I want to fit in right away, immediately. What is the thing that you want for me? And as soon as I got the edge on that, what it is, I'm going to tell you how I'm going to do it for you. I'm coming in right here. I'll be here the first thing on Monday morning. Get through your stuff. Oh, by the way, what's the project? Just talking about this project that you wanted to do. I'd love to be engaged in that project. Right away. I got the hand up. I'm raising my hand. I want to do this for you. It's easy to answer.
I mean, mine is similar to that. Like, I was asked a specific, like, how would you handle this? Like, specific technical question about a situation that the employer was dealing with at that time. And I laid it out for him. Because, like, it wasn't like some nebulous question. It also wasn't outside my skill set. And maybe they'd interviewed people that didn't have the skill set and it was a good filtering question for them. But for me, I was like, no, I know how to deal with this and I'm going to tell you. And I got hired and, it took him a week and a half to decide to come back around to me. And then we did what I told him.
Not only am I going to answer this question, but you should probably take notes because just in case you don't hire me, you're going to want to follow this.
Right. No bullshit. If that's like, if you get one of those questions in an interview, go ahead and give them the answer. Because you may be giving away free consulting hours, but when they don't hire you and they end up doing that, they're always going to wonder, what else didn't we get? Right? Like, we got this right answer out of this person. We didn't hire them. What didn't we get when we didn't hire them? And
if they didn't hire you, they were the wrong place anyways.
Sure.
9 times out of 10.
I'm enough of a jerk that, like, I like to think that, like, if I give you a good technical answer and then later you discover that that's a good technical answer, I hope you lose sleep at night wondering what you missed. I'm the same way with, like, dating. Not that I've done a ton of that. I've been married a lot of my life. But if you take a pass on me, but later wake up and think, oh, I could have been like, yeah, great. You could have been with me. Wonder how good that would have been.
So, what are we talked a little bit about? We didn't mention it by name, but red flags. What are some red flags as a prospective employee that you might suss out during an interview process? I mean, one of the ones that what W2K his question was kind of one that might
it's a good one.
Raise some red flags. But what are other things that you might encounter or answers you might get during an interview process that are like maybe not walk out the door, but are like, yeah, I don't want to work here kind of red flags? I mean, I know some of mine, but.
And like, here's one where I would love to give specifics because, like, I think that's more valuable to people, like, give specific answers, but it's more nebulous for me than that. If I can tell that I'm giving you answers that aren't what you're looking for,
but they're the right answer.
No, they're the wrong answer, right? Like, you've got a specific, like, you've got a way you do things. You got a technical approach that works for you. Maybe you're asking me things I don't know about, right? But
or require information you don't know about.
Right. No. Like, you might be asking me things that are above my technical skill level.
Gotcha.
If you're going to give me a pass on that, I'm going to wonder why you're desperate. Right? Because that's what that is. Like, if you're willing to take it, in general, I think I know how interview processes went. Like, I can tell when somebody feels like I'm like giving me the cold fish response, and I can tell, generally tell when people are leaning forward. Let's be honest, most people in IT are not that sophisticated. These are not used car salesmen, right?
Yeah, but there are
They
some
can't.
obvious things that are like real fast. You sit in an interview, they come unprepared. They come
Right.
late. You're right. They're chaotic. The process is like, what are you
Right.
talking about? You know,
Right.
or that question that you ask and they don't answer. Right. It's like, why
Right.
are you avoiding that? Those are the things. I mean, you know what? You got to be comfortable. When you leave the interview, you got, all right, I did really good at that, man. I got this job, right? And those are
Right.
the things that it's like, oh, man, you know what? They don't
And
want me.
if I've got a sense about it, I'll ask questions like, hey, tell me about the size of the team. Tell me about your environment. Like, I know what an understaffed team looks like.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Chronically understaffed, and if they some play through no fault of their own will be understaffed. When they
Yeah.
brag about being understaffed, that
Yeah.
is a gigantic red flag.
Right.
When they
If
brag
you are
about how lean they are and how hard it. Oh, we have I don't know 5,000 desktops. We managed to run it all with only 2 people.
Right.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
Right.
You think you're running it with 2 people.
I
You're
mean,
doing
at
an
that
awful
point,
job.
you ask the
Guaranteed.
question, how do you do that? And they go,
Right.
oh, our people work real hard. I'm like,
Hmm.
that is not an answer.
The correct answer would have been excellent automation.
Right.
That's the
So
only acceptable answer.
what we have is fleet consistency. We only have 2
Yes.
models in the field. The last model, which
And the
we
current model.
have less than 25%, and the current model. Yes, when we switch models, it gets difficult, and we hire consult. Like, these are the answers I'd want to that
We
question, right?
spool up
Like,
contractors for 6 months,
Yeah.
we have automation.
do a full refresh.
We have
Yep.
automation that lets us do 150 new systems a day and only 15 minutes of turnover for an existing person when they're using it. Like, tell me stats, and then maybe I'm on board. But if your thing is like, no, we just got great people that work really hard, like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
Like, you've got great people that if I can get their names, the next job I have, I'm going to tell them to hire them because they
Yeah.
work hard, and they shouldn't work hard for you anymore.
Yeah. So yeah, that was one of my red flags. The other one is if IT reports to the CFO.
Yeah. I hate
Really?
that one. Yep.
Oh yeah, that is a
Doesn't belong
huge
there.
red flag.
Yep.
So
I have
Is
never
the-
seen an organization where IT reports to CFO that isn't a shit show.
Right.
In fact, if there's any instance, like if you look at their org chart and there's ever a C-level reporting to another C-level, that's a big red flag.
fair enough. I would agree with that. In general, if you are a C-level, your job is to report to the board, right? And that's it. If you've got C-levels reporting to C-levels, and a ton of companies have like every C-level effectively reporting to the CEO.
Yeah.
Even then, like yeah, there's day-to-day operational things, but yeah, if it's like somebody's got to be steering the ship. Industry does not work if it's by committee, right? But at the end of the day, if like the CIO or the CFO or whatever other C thing you've imagined doesn't ultimately report to the board, and the rest of it is about day-to-day dynamics, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
Another one is if somebody holds 2 contradictory C-level positions. So, like, if you're a CIO and the CISO,
Yeah.
those 2 should not be the same person ever.
You know what? I think you could imagine.
No.
I can imagine
No.
a world where that's true. Here's where, if you are the COO,
I can't imagine a world where that is correct. That could be true.
no, if you are the COO, Chief Operating Officer, and the CISO, it's never going to work.
I
Because
think that would
nothing
work
about-
better than the CIO. That would work better than the CIO and the CISO being the same person.
Because like
Because those should be positions that butt heads.
but like
They will be, because the CISO needs to be able to tell the CIO or CTO, depending whatever.
sure.
They need to be able to hold each other accountable. When
Okay,
that's the same person, that will never happen.
From an accountability standpoint, I understand what you're saying. But so that's the question, right? Like, talk to me about your C-level. Talk to me about your accountability. Talk to me about your checks and balances, right? Like,
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, I don't ask that question in interviews. If I can get a picture into the organization and I see that stuff, or I see clear conflicts or I see signs of unhealthy dynamics, I've got a family to feed. I will suffer a lot of stuff, but like, I look at that like, this is a stepping stone.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, and C-level executives that are watching this stream, all 0 of you,
How about
you take that to heart. Fix
yeah.
your org.
top interview mistakes? Let's talk about the other side. Interview mistakes that you make going into an interview.
Being too honest.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about
so.
my over honesty. When asked for your 5-year plan, when mentioning that your 5-year plan does not include being involved in IT,
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, like, I actually, like, I didn't say that I wanted to be out of IT. I said that I wanted to have like other options. But like, hey, maybe don't tell people that you're not that invested in the career path that you're hiring for.
Right.
Yeah, that's a rough one, even if it is.
Well, I don't say it right away, but usually when a job description, this is during a prelim. I never say it to the actual person during the interview, because if you get past the prelim and the screening part of it, then they should already know to leave me alone, because I don't say many things on my resume about being a systems person, but when the job description has, oh, you're a perfect match, and they want to talk to you right away, I don't mind getting on their list for future positions, but certainly I want to set it straight. Here I am. You got a bad understanding, because I don't know how you matched my resume to this job description, but let me just explain to you, I don't want to do these things. So you just correct whatever profile you have on me. And, the next time you call with a job that is a match. If not, just lose my name. I don't have a problem saying that and getting the table clear, because, I don't need an extra 30 or 40 emails from a job board from somebody that's just trying to match you up with some profile. Oh, I got a premier client and I went to this, and I'm looking, I found you, and I'm going to match you up, la, 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 la. Forget it. Forget it. Lose the resume. It's the best way to screen it out. You got to thin it out. I keep it thin. I do about 100 emails a day. I respond to maybe 3 or 4 of them. My process is very selective, and I won't say it out here loud, but it includes a couple of different things that I don't tolerate within, the reach out. Poor English. You can't spell. What that makes it easy just to start chopping and getting through them, right? Because that's part of it. You don't want to do bad interviews by interviewing for something you don't really want to do. I'd rather stay unemployed in that cape.
Right.
Lead,
No, I mean,
lead
have
with
standards.
a salary range. Don't waste my time.
Well, when you interview,
make an offer.
Yeah. If you get to a point, well, you got to make sure they're not making an offer too quickly. If you're in the first interview process and they're already trying to hire you, there's something wrong there. Yeah, that should raise your flag right away.
Yeah,
Sure,
they're
You
too
know,
sure.
desperate.
that's
Well, and
not-
there is a difference between desperate in general and really
Right.
wanting you in particular.
right.
Yeah,
Get
like
you before somebody else does.
right.
Yeah.
Understanding that somebody's a heavy hitter and trying to lock them up quick. Like,
Sure.
you know what you do is if you're in that situation, um, give them good signs. Like at the end of that first interview, like, hey, we're gonna book you for another interview, but just so we can get the ball rolling, what's your salary requirement? Here's
Yeah.
the range we were thinking, right?
Yeah.
Like, because if you want to hire somebody, I know that standard business practice is like, well, let them name a number and then like try to lowball them. If you want to hire somebody good and you want them to appreciate you, throw out a number. If that number is too low for them,
They'll
make
fit.
sure it's clear to them that they should come back and let you know so that then start the negotiation. But they are the commodity that you are buying. You aren't
Well,
buying
and
the,
both sides should know as soon as possible what those
Exactly.
numbers are.
right.
Because don't waste my fucking time, and I
Exactly.
won't waste yours.
Here's
They want to
And,
know.
and if I give you a number
Yeah.
and you later say, well, that's like way above our range, you just wasted my time.
Right. Now I got an attitude.
That pisses me off.
You bet on it.
Think-
I usually give them the range, and then I explain to them, right? If you're just talking about consulting and you're only doing a 6-month contract, here's the rate, and it's going to be high, right? But if you want to do a contract to hire, then you want to know what the conversion's going to be. All right.
Yeah.
Well, there's things that have to be talked about then. I want to see the policies and the programs for the insurance. I want to see the 401k. I want to understand the vacation and the PTO and all those good things and stuff like that. That makes the number go up and down a little bit. But if you don't want to talk about them, well, then it's really hard to pin down a number. You want the flat rate? I'll give you a flat rate. I'll tell you flat out what it is. And it's going to be on the high side. You don't like it? See you later.
Mm-hmm.
right.
You know? I don't know. I've done a lot of interviews. I've worked in a lot of places, right? And it's mostly because you got to be square with them. If you BS them, you can get in situations where there are things you can't do. And now when you piss them off, as a consultant, you don't want a bad review. Oh, we're done with Mike. He couldn't do these 2 things we asked him to do. They weren't in the job description, but you pissed them off. Once you get on that side of the fence, it's easy for them to just terminate the contract, right?
Right.
And then that's thing about consulting companies. I got my troubles with them is because they always bullshit you, right? They're never square, and you have to draw that out of them if you're going to work with those types of institutions. And when it comes closer to the end of a contract, it's not to their best interest to look for work for you until the gig is done. Right? Because first of all, you don't want to be doing interviews on the other company's time, right? Unless you're doing them after hours, right? Now you don't want to cause that kind of problem. It's, right? I had that happen to me just a couple of months back. They weren't looking for work. The contract date came up, and the other company lost. Their budget was all screwy. Hey, we can't keep you. We got to let you go on this day. Okay, well, that's the way it goes. Good thing I had other work because it was, the company I worked for wasn't taking care of their homework.
If you are a full-time dedicated contract employee, the company you work for has failed.
Yeah.
Because what they should be doing is they should be getting you like 35%. There's a couple of notable exceptions to this. But in general, if you are part of a contracting organization and they're selling your services, at most 35 hours a week, right? Because that other 5 hours a week should be devoted to them, like shipping you out to, to interview with other companies or to like even look for other work, right? At some point, you have to fill the pipe. If they're not filling it for you, and if you're part of a big enough organization, there's stuff in the pipe. You're just going to transition off. If you're not working for a company that's doing that for you, you're not in the right consulting organization. Go out on your own. It's the same thing, and you'll make more money.
Yep.
Like a lot more money. Because the amount that they're charging for you is enough to cover some executive that owns the company's boat plus salary.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, I've been out on my own. I don't like it. I don't want to do it again. But I will not go to work for a company that's going to like stick it to me because they didn't do their job selling me.
Right.
I've got technical chops. I've got soft skills that are like desirable, right? If you can't sell me, you're bad at your job.
Well, you have to, when you're in a situation like that, you have to look at it from the perspective of you're paying that company to get you a job.
Right.
You're paying a portion of what you're earning to get. Are they earning that money?
Yeah.
Right. You are taking less money overall for the services you provide.
Yes.
So that you don't have to deal with that. Essentially, you are contracting out the sales and marketing of you to someone else at a premium. You're also like buying insurance against lean times, right? Like that's what it is to own a business. You take on the risk. And if like you think you've got a business model like, oh, it's great, I don't have to take on any of the risk. You're lying to yourself. You're taking on the risk. And if you're putting that on your employees, you're not doing your job as like a business owner.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you want to capitalize on like that high level rate that you can charge for really high quality technical people and not pay them well and provide them some shelter over lean times, you're not doing your job right. And you're probably not going to last real long. And I can prove that to you.
You're 100% correct.
And those are the cases. Like if you are doing things, like if you're not filling the pipe, right, but you're doing things to shield people from the lean times, and you're providing other incentives to them, then I stand corrected, right? Like, if you're given profit sharing, you're going to keep paying them like salary, even when it's lean. Yeah, maybe you have that person employed 50 hours a week and you can't do a lot to market them. But hopefully that contract, I mean, if you haven't negotiated that contract to the point where that's going to cover you for like 5 or 6 months, then like you're bad at your job.
When they, I've had this happen too, and I'm not afraid to do it either. And it gets challenging too. All right, the 6 months is over. It's a 6-month contract. It's not the hire, but it's just a 6-month contract. And they want to renew it. Right? Okay, I'm no problem with it. But guess what? I don't know what you're making. You try so hard to hide it, but now I want to raise. Right? So, you just pulled that on us. We should have talked about it. Right? You're right.
No, they want me back.
You should have talked about it, but that's right. They want me back and I want to raise. Now, I don't want you to take more from them. I want you to take something out of your pocket and hand it over. So if you're
I don't mind if you take more from them. They want you back.
Right.
Like, basic market economics. I've got a commodity that they are interested in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying like, you don't got to go from 75 to 150 an hour, or like modern terms, you don't have to go from 250 to 500 an hour, but like they want you back. How about you go from 250 to 260?
Right.
And I want 7 of those $10.
Well, that's what I mean. That's exactly what I do to them. I love doing it because it's like, well, we don't do that. Well, then I don't work.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
well, then neither do I.
What don't you like about $3 an hour more? It costs you nothing.
Right.
Like that's straight up profit.
Yeah.
Ask the question and give me the bulk.
Yep.
Right. And if they say no, then let's have a conversation with them. Like, well, do you really want me back?
Yeah. And you know what? When it gets ugly, I don't have any problem. I mean, I've worked for a lot of shitty contracting companies that I'll just flat out, I'll go to the guy and tell him, me and my boss are having troubles and I'm walking on you. So, you can't hire me straight up because, there's a conflict of interest. But when we're done with that going away, call my number. Here it is. And I'll let everybody know what's going on and you can do what you want. See you in the car.
Hey,
Love it.
Full disclosure, state of Wisconsin.
Yep.
If you go to work for the person that was contracting you,
Yeah.
the company you worked for may be really angry. They may threaten a lot of things. They might even file a lawsuit, but it's going to go nowhere. You don't even have to have a good lawyer. You can just show up in court and like, right to work, baby.
Right.
And that judge is going to be like, yep. The only things that are going to get you in trouble in the state of Wisconsin are if you take customer lists or straight up clear trade secrets. And like, I know how to do my job is not a trade secret.
Right.
Yeah. So like,
Yeah,
if
they'll
a
threaten
customer,
all kinds of non-compete stuff.
Yep.
Almost none of it is actually
I worked
actionable.
for the company that maybe the only company in the last 20 years that ever successfully defended a non-compete clause because one of their employees took customer lists to a competitor.
Yeah. Right. That's
Yeah.
And their non-compete
That's
clause,
just slimy ways.
Yeah.
It
That's
their non-compete clause was super specific. Like it essentially said, you can't take our customer lists or our proprietary information to our competitor. And because it was so specific and so clear, they were able to successfully defend it. Beyond that, go ahead, get crappy about it. You're going to lose. And if you're dealing with a big enough company, they're going to countersue you for every little possible breach of contract. They're not going to get any money from you, but they're going to crush you in legal fees.
Yeah.
Don't, if you're that contract company that's upset about losing a good employee, pay them better.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you wouldn't lose them.
Right? They're leaving for a reason. Contracting work is super sexy. I love it. It's great. New things every day, interesting people. The work's cool. Treat me well. I'll stick with it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Don't treat me well. Deuces. Like, don't hold nothing against you, but like, I'm going to go get better somewhere else.
Yeah. As you should.
Yes.
Right.
Know your worth and make sure you get it.
Right.
Or be comfortable with the sacrifice you're making for a specific other. I guess that goes into know your worth. Like, know what you need, know what you want, and know how to get it.
Yeah. I mean, like my current place, I was able to negotiate from a position of power because they needed specifically me. But
Sure.
it's not like I pulled one over on them or anything. I got a good deal because it was a good deal for both parties.
Right. Your ask was not over the top.
Yeah,
Right.
It was not unreasonable.
Correct. And like,
and I specifically crafted it in a way that was mutually beneficial. And it was basically gamifying the entire relationship between a consultant and the consulting companies. So it's in both of our best interest to keep me as busy as possible. But hey, if I sit my ass, I'm still getting lots of money. So
Mhm.
I mean, at the end of the day,
by all means.
they're making a crap ton of money off of the work you do, right?
Correct.
In order to have that privilege, they've got to put some skin in the game, and their skin is risk when it's thin.
Absolutely.
And they've always got the option to decide that that's not working out for them and terminate the contract.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the thing for consulting.
Well, even if they do, I still have stake. So
I mean,
like I said,
enough.
I had the luxury of negotiating from a position of power. So
I mean, let's be honest, like negotiating stake is like the strongest statement you can make as a prospective employee to say, no, I value your success. I
Yeah.
want to participate in your success, and I want to
Yes.
reap the rewards of it. Right?
Correct. I want us both to be successful. Everything I did was for us both to be successful.
Right.
Might
I
as
want to
well
hurt.
participate in the good
Right.
part of that.
Right. Like I'm
Right.
willing to hurt when you hurt. Like that's what ownership stake says. Right.
Yep.
And if that ownership stake is in lieu of other payment, like that's a powerful statement. I've offered that to 2 companies. I've had both of them turn me down. I think honestly to their detriment.
Keep talking. I got to stand over here for a second. Open up this door.
That's fine. It's the door to the bathroom. It's all good. No, I think it's from a consulting standpoint, like engage your employees. If they're good, engage them. I'm always one for vetting process. If you're a direct hire employer, you're not a consulting company, like go ahead and say, look, 3 months trial period, whatever, or be really good at vetting your candidates. But consulting companies, once they've proved their worth to you, reward them well.
Yeah.
They'll make your company better.
And that's kind of one of the differences between kind of consulting and contracting. A lot of times in contracting, you're kind of looking for, you kind of want that contract to hire. In consulting, you usually probably wouldn't. I mean,
Right.
there's no company that I've done work for that I would actually want to be hired for or hired by. But there are ones I've been working for 3 years, going on 4, I think. Yeah, so I mean, I'm more than happy to work with them long term, and I like working with them long term. I wouldn't want to be hired by them. I wouldn't want to
Right.
be hired by any of them. That is not my goal. I want to continue doing consulting for multiple places. That's what I like doing.
Yep.
I don't want to be hired on.
There's an interview question for you. If you're signing on to a contract to hire position, ask the question: how many people,
Yeah.
percentage, numbers, whatever, get pulled on? And show me numbers. Don't tell me a number. I want to see stats.
Yeah.
Right. If it's not better than 50% or 50% or better, I'm not interested, because you know what that is? That's a shell game. Like if you're looking at companies that are like, well, 10%, the best 10% make it. Like,
Yeah.
you're just, what you've done is you found a way to not have to pay people.
Yeah. Meat market. Bring them in. They do the work, and you let them go.
You found
They don't have to worry about paying benefits or anything else.
The companies are paying it anyway. But when you hire contract workers, it's OPEX, not payroll. And then you're playing the stupidest version of modern accounting shell game.
It is. I don't understand it.
The dollars are all green. What you've decided is you can tolerate the lowest common denominator of work, and you've engineered your business to be able to tolerate that. And great if you can do it, but think how much better you could be if you could find like people that are 25% better and just be honest with them. Like those things, if you're paying the least common denominator year over year, what you are doing is you are constantly losing money. It's going to take a while, but like you're not as good at what you could. You're not as good.
And not necessarily losing money. You're losing out on money. I would put it that way.
Every opportunity, right? If you think about any technical field, right, like development, ops, infrastructure, whatever it is, every time you have somebody that performs below average, you end up losing opportunity cost, right? And that lost opportunity cost compounds over time the same way that gains over opportunity cost produce over time. Like, this is compound interest, right? It works both ways. Like, compound loss is a real thing too. Oh, hey, I didn't spend that $5 on Bitcoin in like 2005 or 2015, whatever it is. If you spent $5 on Bitcoin in 2015, you're not real worried about what the price is right now. But, you know, if you're like, I'm going to hold off on that $5 and I'm going to buy it in 2020. Now $5 doesn't do much for you.
Nope.
Congratulations. That's lost opportunity cost. Same deal with hiring the lowest common denominator in technical employees. That's my opinion. Prove me wrong.
Nah, can't, because you're right.
Oh, I know, you know.
Well, and it's not just employees; it's everything else.
Right.
If they're doing that with their payroll, most likely everything else in the organization, at least in the IT sphere,
Right.
is similar.
Yep.
Sure.
It's all nickel and dimed. It's all shoestrings. It's all kicking the can down the road. It's all those things we've all seen and all hate.
Well, and that's a basic
And you can only do
misunderstanding.
that for so long.
It's a basic misunderstanding of what IT does for you. IT is a force multiplier. Yes, there are ways to waste money on IT, right? But in general, you spend $1 in IT, you're getting more than $1 back. In almost no other realm of business is that true. Like, yeah, you're going to spend XYZ on a sales guy or sales girl or sales bot, whatever it is, right? And they're going to bring XYZ number of customers back. So that's like money to your bottom line. What IT is going to do is you pay them $1 and they're going to be able to save you $2 in other work, right? Or at this point, I think we're like, if you look at the compounded effect of IT over time, we're talking about like every dollar spent on IT work is now replacing like $100 or $1,000 of the comparable manual labor.
Oh, quite possibly.
Right? Like, and people
Everybody's
are like,
lost
well,
sight of that.
right. People are constantly like, well, that's not true anymore. Like,
It's more
just
true,
because
if anything.
you're not, just because I don't have you, I still got word processing. No. Let's take it back to its basics. Like, person with a pen doing math and a slide rule, right? Like, that's where now you think that's insane because IT has taken you there. And we will continue to do so over time. It's what we do. And that's why we have value. Anytime you're trying to nickel and dime that part of your business, you're wasting money. Nickel and dime your salespeople. Negotiate a new rate with them. Nickel and dime your marketing department. Nickel and dime your accounting department. You'll work it out. IT makes you more efficient, makes you more effective, makes you more nimble long term. Cheap out at your peril.
Absolutely. Because eventually the bill's going to come due.
Right.
Can't
Wow, I
just
got...
keep piling. What's that?
I was going to say, wow, I got hot there for a few minutes.
Yeah.
I have opinions.
Yeah, you do.
Anyway. All right. We're what are we at? We're getting close to 2 hours. Our typical mark for finish.
Yeah, we're pretty much in the home stretch here.
Mike, tell us a joke.
I don't know any. I usually a good listener. I don't know many.
Fair enough. I'm gonna throw out a blast of the past. If you haven't watched in a while, go out on YouTube and search Mac Crash Different, just to be reminded of the pain of running Apple systems. It is a parody, but it's true enough. Or don't search it on YouTube. Search it on Bing.
Now, if you want to find it,
Fair enough. Yeah, that's my gem for you from like 15 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it was.
all right. Well, anybody else have anything else?
No.
Not. Probably wrap this puppy up. 2 minutes
Absolutely.
early.
A
That
couple minutes.
works.
Kind of at a logical stopping point. So.
I think so.
All right.
All right.
Well, thank you everybody that joined us. Thank you everybody that watched. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Alex, that is no longer with us.
Mhm.
See y'all next week.
Take it easy.
Take it easy.